Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this one-on-one segment. It's going to be a great one today. With us is Mr. Dalton LeBlanc. You know him from State Farm, but do you know how good of an athlete he was? I had heard stories, and after looking at his resume, he was a pretty doggone good athlete. But there's so much to talk about right after the break. Dalton LeBlanc, right here on One-on-One. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. Track in the day compared to now, track was a great sport to watch. It was competitive. We didn't have kids inside playing all these video games and everything. No. We'd go to the parish track meet. That was some competitive track going on out there.
There were some great athletes back then. Southern University, Grambling University. In fact, Grambling was the world record holders back then. Mm-hmm. And Southern might have been the world record holders in the mile relay. And we'd go run against them, and it was fun.
And how about that South Terrebonne team that had Melvin Johnson, Ricky Britt, Robert Lagarde, and Herman Verdon? Number one time in the nation.
They were fantastic, and I'm proud of them.
And Paul Hopgood had these teams at Terrebonne.
That's correct.
That were, I mean, they were just, there was no lack of speed in this area.
Paul was actually a pole vaulter at Northeast in Monroe and came down here to be a coach.
Yeah.
He did a great job.
Yeah, no doubt. This is incredible. And I'm going to say that everybody who watches football and you go to the combine and you see these times of 4.3, 4.27, coaches signing them up today. Dalton ran a 4.2 in the 40, a 4.2. Wow. Dalton, that's fast.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's smoking fast. He ran a 6.0 in the 60 yards. That's 1/10 off the world record. Recorded times at 5.9 and 5.85 in unofficial race time. You had a 9.2 in the 100-yard dash. That's Melvin Johnson type speed.
Yes, sir.
Did you always know you were fast?
As a kid, I was pretty fast. I was running for my life when we were playing football. And but you got to just develop it. I studied Armand Harry's start. He was German. The Germans are very scientific.
Right.
And a good friend of mine would film me with a motion picture camera, and we'd send it off for development and come back and study it in order to improve on the
little
start.
3-minute reels?
That's correct.
Was it Super 8 or 8 millimeter back then?
It was Super 8.
Yeah.
We were high tech, man.
Yeah, that's it. You ran a 10.2 in the 100 meters, 14.1 in the college high hurdles. That was the best freshman time in America, by the way. You ran a 19.1 in high school in the 180 low hurdles. That's a Louisiana record. Honors. 1969-70, first lieutenant in Vietnam, awarded the Bronze Star and Army Commendation medals. That's more important than track. Okay, I just got to say that. 1990, inducted into the ULM Hall of Fame. 1998, inducted into the Louisiana High School Athletics Hall of Fame. 2004, inducted into the Terrebonne High School Hall of Fame. That's a lot of Hall of Fames. So athletic, I just wanted because, and I wanted to spend time on that because most people who see you with State Farm and doing the insurance, they don't realize before State Farm, there was a whole nother world out there.
Yes, sir.
And who's the best athlete you ever came across in your endeavors?
I was running a track meet in Madison Square Garden. Yeah. I was running for the Houston Striders. Mm-hmm. In those days, you got free T-shirts and some tickets to go run a track meet. That's about all you made.
Yeah.
And I wound up getting second. The guy outleaned me, and I said, well, who is this? Who is it? What happened? it was Lennox Miller, the NCAA champion in 100 meters from USC. And I wish I'd have known he was in the race. Maybe I'd have run a little bit better.
You would have leaned a little more.
I'd have leaned a little harder. But it was, it was an interesting race. He was one of the best. When I was running with the Army, there were two of the guys on the USA relay team for the United States for the '68 Olympics was on our track team. And I wound up beating both of them in the inter-service championship and in the military Olympics. That was my dream, was to, when I was 9 years old, I would ask my daddy to time me running around our ranch type house right there on Grand Caillou Road. I'd say, was it faster? Was it faster? And he'd tell me, yeah, probably wasn't, but he'd tell me that. And my dream was to someday stand on the podium and hear the national anthem played for my efforts for the United States. And that happened in Poitiers, France, in the '69 military Olympics, where I came from behind to beat two finalists in the '68 military Olympics and won that race. And that was my last race ever, because after that it was to Vietnam.
Right.
But it was a good way to end my dream
Yeah.
of representing the United States.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. A lot of it's God-given ability. You're born with it, especially sprinters, jumpers, or whatever. But like you said, you would take film of yourself, send it off to probably Kodak in those days.
Right.
But you went a little extra. You were working on technique and different things. Would you consider yourself a self-motivated person your whole life?
Yes, sir. Learned a lot from my father, who was a very successful businessman, and my mother, who was later, when my father died, took over running our little 14 apartments on the east side, which I now own. And mother ran that business. She was a good businesswoman. So I saw people that want to be successful and do well in life, and I was motivated to try to do the same.
Yeah. Were you more driven by the fear of failure or wanting to succeed? It's a difference.
Well, there were a lot of people that said a Cajun boy couldn't win, and you couldn't compete with certain athletes.
Yeah.
And I said, no, that's baloney. We're gonna do it. You just watch.
Right.
It was determination to prove that Cajuns could be just as good as anybody.
You talked about your daddy timing you around the house. Did that thought process come back up a couple of times when you were able to win some big meets or qualify for U.S. meets, and you're going, your mind always goes back to those times where Dad's timing me around the house. Did you ever recollect?
In some of my later races, you work on technique, you work on form, you work on all kind of motivational things, weight training, etc. But I want to tell you, in some of my last races, I said to myself, getting ready to get in the starting blocks, you're in the 4th grade, you're at Honduras school, and let's race. And it was, don't think about technique, just race. Be determined to beat every kid on the school ground.
Right.
And that's kind of what my mind thought was in some of those last races.
Mindset is a good word. You were telling me, I don't mind telling the audience, you said, man, I don't know about this interview. I'm more nervous than when I ran races. Because parents will tell you the same thing. When their kids are playing, they're a lot more nervous than when they were actually playing. When you're out there doing it, you're just doing it, huh?
Oh, yeah.
When you're sitting at a table and getting interviewed, you got to think about it, huh?
Yeah, you notice your parents real nervous, but you all right. It's like when you're in Vietnam, I sent my mother a worry rock. She was over there in East Houma, and she was worried about me. I wasn't worried about me because I know what's going on over there.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened to me later on with my son when he was in Afghanistan.
Wow.
He gave me that same worry rock.
Yeah.
And I was worried as can be about his safety.
Yeah, because when you're not there, the mind tends to fill in the blanks.
You're not sure what's going on with your loved ones.
Yeah. Just like I asked you why you went to, Northeast. Why'd you come back to home? You could have went anywhere at that point.
I thought it was going to be temporary. I thought I'd go into management with State Farm, but I just loved it. I really got in love with the insurance business, and we were very successful. We were the fastest growing agent in the state. We became the largest commercial writer for State Farm in the state, largest homeowners writer in the state, and we just kept being successful. So stick around and enjoy your life while you're in a great place with great people.
Yeah, and obviously you had good role models.
Yes,
Growing up, they put you on a pretty good path, and
Yes, sir.
no doubt. But you've raised a few too, right?
We have 5 children. I married a wonderful woman named Marie Clement, from originally from Thibodeau, but grew up right there on Idlewild.
Right.
And we have 5 children. We have 14 grandchildren with 2 more on the way, so we're going to have 16 grandchildren. So it's a legacy, and that's the most important thing. Actually, my most important job was not being a State Farm agent, but it's being a parent.
Right.
I think we have a responsibility when we bring these children into our world to take care of them and nurture them and teach them and love them up. So that's, I think, is our most important job.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. What Claymore family is your wife from?
Well, from Thibodeau, her
Yeah.
daddy was a school principal,
Okay.
and he was very successful, and he's a good friend of mine today. He's a great man, and it just was being an educator.
His mom and dad, who we grew up on Cherry Street in Thibodeau and Waverly, they're across the street neighbors with a Claymore. So
Oh, yeah.
Claymore's a big name. And
It's a big name in Thibodeau, that's right.
yeah, there's no looking forward. How do you? All athletes like to do this. When we sit at the coffee shop and we're talking to Paul Hopgood, he's talking about my high jump or Martin Bouquet running the relays for him, or all his athletes he had. I'm sure if me and you were sitting down having coffee, we'd be talking track. Athletics always comes back. It's the home base.
Yes, sir.
You got a big home base. This is incredible stuff that I looked over with you. And sometimes you pinch yourself and go, wow, this is incredible.
Well, you don't think about it at the time. You just run the race and do what you're supposed to do, you know. My philosophy of athletics is that it's a training ground to teach you how to win, lose, and build character.
Right.
My coach, Al Tragle, would take all the cobwebs out of young kids' minds. He was a great coach. Without him, I don't think I'd have been as successful as I was in high school. But my philosophy of athletics is that it's a training ground, and that later on in life, the world doesn't owe you anything because you can shoot a basketball real good or you can run fast. But it's a training ground to then be successful as a parent, be successful in business, and be successful as a community member. So that's what I think athletics is all about.
Yeah. And you've been very involved in Terrebonne Parish, so you've taken that same drive and sort of put it into your community.
Well, we've tried, sir.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Thank you, sir.
If I was able to get all the group, and a lot of these athletes, and I'm sure a lot of them have passed away too, but I was able to get all these people you ran against, all your former coaches, all your family, your kids. If I were able to get your mom and dad, if I were able to get a lot of people in a room, and I asked them, y'all got to come up with one word to describe Dalton LeBlanc. What would you hope that one word would be?
Persistent. My daddy would probably say intense. But just have a desire to win.
Yeah. Well, when you combine intense with persistent, that's dynamite for success. I've learned over the years, you could have a parent who was so successful, but their kid's sort of laid back and they don't really want to go out there and work on the game, or they might be a good tennis player, but no, I think I'll skip it today. But when you got somebody who's got all the genetics and they either hate to lose or they're driven by success, one of those two, it'll work either way. That's a dynamite package. So you use your God-given ability, because obviously you had some and you've done, and it's sort of calculated into your business over the years, and calculated into your community spirit, calculated into your athletics, of course. What's the most memorable moment you had on a podium or a track? If you had to choose one of these, what would it be?
In my final race in Poitiers, France, when I was running against two finalists in the 68 100-meter Olympics, the gun went off, and about halfway through the race, I glanced and saw that I was not winning. And something inside of me yelled, "No!" And I then proceeded to give it all I had. My knees came up, you know how that does in sprinting, and I finished the last part of the race as fast as I probably ever ran a race before. The colonel called us together and said, "Lieutenant LeBlanc, I've never seen anybody run the second half of 100 meters that fast." And he said, "I want to commend you." And I said, "Well, thank you, sir, I appreciate it." And then he proceeded to give me orders to Vietnam. But it was a memory. And then when I was on the victory stand, I said, "Dad, this is for you."
Yeah. Because
of all the times you were sitting in the freezing cold in the Memphis relays and my parents supported me.
Yeah.
And you couldn't help but appreciate that. When I was doing weight training right there on Grand Caillou Road in a little air-conditioned screen porch where we would barbecue crawfish, they thought I was crazy, because I would work out with weights, with a Joe Weider free weights, from about 6 o'clock at night to about 8 o'clock at night. And my mother then would cook me a steak when I came in from that. And those are the kind of things that your parents and your coaches support you, that it's not just you, it's the support you have from all your loved ones.
Well, Dalton, I want to thank you for coming on the program. And remember seeing you downtown for ribbon cutting. And I was thinking to myself, I never had Dalton on my show. So I wanted to make sure I got this. I'm glad we got it and got it documented. What a great career, and thank you. And you look great. You look like you can still run. So keep up the great work, whatever you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Dalton.
Thank you, Marty.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.